I think as a coach of endurance athletes, unless you're working with all elite level athletes, you're always going to be working with people on hearing their weight loss challenges. I mean, it's part of it, because a lot of people come to the sport as they view it as part of a way that they can lose weight, and that's fine and good. So yeah, it's something to deal with, commonly. But I see, the mentality, and you read about it all the time, the mentality of, well, I just did, X number of hours, 2 days, I can eat whatever. I mean, it's kind of cliche, but man, it is so true. People, that mindset is really prevalent with age group athletes.
Yeah. This episode of the Smart Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Solpre. If you're active at all, whether you're running or simply out walking for the day, you've probably experienced one of the number one problems that active people have, and that's chafing. Solpre's all-new, all-natural anti-chafe balm solves that problem while feeding your skin the vital nutrients it needs to be healthy. If you'd like to stop chafing once and for all and treat your body right, go to solpre.com to check out the anti-chafe balm today. That's SOLPRI.com. Welcome to the Smart Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Funk. Back here today for episode 100. We've hit a century, as he said before we got going. He is a former coach of Paralympic gold medalist Shawn Morelli. Currently, he's a certified public accountant. He has a host of credentials, which he's let lapse, but as we were talking about, it doesn't really matter. The knowledge doesn't disappear just because you didn't pay your dues to whichever organization is certifying you. And of course, the thing that matters most to me, he is my coach, so I work with him on a day-to-day basis. Welcome to the show, Ryan Ross.
Thanks, JF. Appreciate the introduction.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was fair or maybe appropriate to have you back for episode 100. Like I said, you came on for the very first episode when I didn't know how to talk to people or figure out if I could talk for an hour or any of that. So, it makes it easy to make you a recurring guest when you're there at the very beginning.
This is bigger than when Wilt scored 100 in a game, isn't it?
I don't know about that.
Come on. We're at a century ride here. Century ride.
Yeah, and I haven't even made a century ride yet, which is fine by me.
You've never done a century ride?
No.
Not once?
No. You're in charge of my training. You should know.
Well, I know, but maybe sometime before that, sometime.
No. The longest we were going, we were doing those 5-hour rides. That was the longest I'd gone. And I'm trying to remember, I was getting up to, let me think about that, like 80, 85 miles on those. And that was it. In a way, it was almost like a century because I had to come back and go run 5 miles after I got done with that, which is kind of like riding another 15.
Yeah, worse probably. Well, I'll make a note. We'll put that on the agenda next week. Are you ready for that?
Right. Or just break it up over the week, and then maybe I'll be fine. But changing objectives, obviously, with me coming back this year and trying to go back to running and stop being a heavy triathlete. Got to get back to being leaner and all those things that come along with trying to be fast at running. I was just talking about this with another recording from today, and talking to her about, it was a lady who works at this company called Hydro. They make rowing machines. It's like the Peloton of rowing, basically.
Oh, interesting.
And I was asking her about like caloric burn, because I did this running video on the YouTube channel. So if you're not listening, check up the YouTube channel. I have a show just about running, youtube.com/Solpri, SOLPRI. I did a video about how long does it take to burn 1,000 calories when you're running. It's basically, give or take, you burn 100 calories a mile. So it takes 10 miles. Doesn't matter how much you weigh, how fast you're going. That's roughly what it's going to be. So I was asking her about, is there any rule like that with rowing? And I just didn't think the whole thing through. And it's kind of like cycling where it's more about like lean mass and how much power you're producing compared to like how much you weigh for like caloric production, since it's not weight bearing like running is. Like
yeah, so the burn isn't as intense in cycling or rowing as it will be in running.
Right. Well, she would probably have an argument with the burn and versus running, but this I didn't get a chance to ask her about it. I know she disagreed because there was a Runner's World article about it and she disagreed, but we ran out of time, so maybe I'll have to email her about it and ask. But
well, if you do them, you also have to take into account, like if you or I go to row hard for an hour, we're going to burn more calories than she's going to burn because she's way more efficient at what she's doing.
Right. Well, that's one of the things she said is like it also depends on like how how good your rowing form is, basically.
Yeah, and your experience and your efficiency with it. I mean, it's kind of like if you're not a runner and you start running and you go run 2 miles at what you perceive as an easy pace. Well, over time, your heart rate drops when you do that. Thus, your calories you're burning also drops.
Right.
So efficiency comes into play, quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I kind of wonder how that plays into that 100 calorie a mile rule.
It can't be a hard and fast rule. It can't be. Even though I hear you that
it's not perfect in that it does vary, but it's like it doesn't vary enough for it to be like substantial, because it's the big varying part is largely going to be weight, and then incline would be the other variable. So like
sure.
If you're going a mile uphill, it's going to take more work. It's a physics equation.
Right.
Like work is
because you're out there longer.
Well, no. I'm gonna get this wrong. Work is in joules. Got to write this down. Work.
Well, hold on a second. If you
distance times force
1 mile versus running flat for 1 mile, unless you're running really hard when you run flat. I mean, or running super. I mean, it's going to take longer to go up the hill than it is to run flat.
Yeah, but it's not the time. See, we're so based in time. It's not the time that we're concerned with. So work is typically in joules, but you can convert joules to calories. Work is distance times force. Time's not a factor. It's how far you went and how much force was produced. But like the distance you went is when you're running is a factor of how much force you're producing. So like there's this kind of tied together relationship of distance and force, where like if I can produce more force, I can travel farther in one bound or one leg leap than somebody who can produce less force of the same size, right?
Yeah.
So our calories burned, the work done is the same. But if you increase the incline, it requires more force to go the same distance. So that's when the variable changes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, speed isn't a factor. It's just the total distance covered, because it requires, so like if it takes, I'll just say five units of force to cover a meter, then it takes 5 units of force to cover a meter. If my foot can produce 5 units of force in one stroke, I can cover that meter with one leg swing. If you can only do one, it's going to take you 5 leg swings, but it still only took 5 units of force to cover it. So like there's that. That's the reason that 100 calories per mile basically holds true. The biggest variable is weight, because it takes more force to move larger bodies, and then incline, because it takes more force to work against gravity than if you're on the flat. So that's why I said it's just a rule of thumb, but that's why it holds basically true. It's not intuitive in the least, but I mean, as I looked into it, I was like, oh, it makes perfect sense.
I would definitely agree. It's going to be very close. But let me ask you this.
I think efficiency is going to obviously play a role too. Like if you're not as compact, if you're flailing your arms, clearly you're doing more work because you're doing all this nonsensical movement. But
let me ask you this. Why is the calories we burn important? Is this because we're thinking, as the individual might be thinking about weight loss?
That's why I think the question came up.
Yeah.
I try to base a lot of my videos on questions people are asking, and it was something that I saw specifically 1,000 calories because I think people just like dial in on like 1,000's a lot, and how much do I have to do 1,000? So I'm like, all right, well, let's figure this out. Basically, it's 10 miles.
Are they as concerned about what they're eating in their day-to-day diet,
right,
in their attempt to lose weight, rather than nailing down how many calories am I burning every single mile? I mean,
right.
I think we know what's more important.
Well, clearly. I mean, the video just came out today as we're recording this. No, wait, it's Friday now. Yesterday, about can running give you six-pack abs? That's another question that came up. And the answer is kind of.
Yeah.
But you got to eat right. Like, and I talk about that, how, I've never had a six-pack. But then, like, I had a friend in college on the team I ran on. He always had a six-pack. I was usually faster than him, but he looked better than I did. I mean, I'll take being fast though.
If you look at elite level, like runners, triathletes, cyclists, you don't see six-pack abs anywhere hardly.
Not usually, no.
Not really, because it's not important.
No.
I mean, now proper abdominal strength is important.
Yeah.
But six-pack abs is not the type of strength that we're looking for. We're looking for something much deeper, transverse abdominis. So yeah, that's why you don't see a bunch of runners and triathletes they might be lean, but that's kind of a waste.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you've heard me. I don't know how many. We've been working together a number of years now. I don't know how many times I've said, "This is year I'm going to finally have a six-pack." I probably say it every year. Has yet to happen, but I don't know what obviously, and I say that to say that I'm subject to this too, but I don't know what the obsession is with it culturally. Like, is that the ultimate sign of fitness? Like, it's the ultimate sign of male virility. Like, I've got a six-pack. Like,
to some people it might be. I mean, to some people it definitely might be. But what's your okay? So if your goal is I want a six-pack abs, it's kind of hard to define.
Right.
I mean, as an endurance athlete, you can more objectively define a goal.
Right.
And saying I want to get six-pack abs, especially when it's not important and it's going to take a lot of time to develop those six-pack abs away from other things. I mean, so but your day's coming. I have no doubt. One of these days, one of these videos, you're going to pull up that shirt and I'm going to be like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, we can only hope. I feel like I'm trying not to worry too much about it. It's just like right now it's like trying to stay in, healthy weight loss. Having the kitchen back helps.
Yeah.
So, if you're just listening, you missed out. I did a wrap-up video at the end of the year for last year's question, The Purpose of Sport, on the YouTube channel. Again, youtube.com/Solpre. I showed at that time, a basically empty kitchen. I can't remember whether we had the floor in yet. So we went like 4 months of just lots of eating out and barely cooking anything because we were cooking. We had the microwave in the living room and a cooking top, like a little burner in the dining room, and the fridge in the sunroom, and just running around the house trying to assemble it. And by we, I mean my lovely fiance was doing most of it and tearing her hair out, trying to do her best to feed me. So,
that poor girl,
bless her. She works hard to make sure I'm fed because it's me that is the issue. She would eat just about anything, and I have to be fed because I work out so much. But now we got the kitchen at least functional. It's not done, and we can go back to eating relatively regular, which is nice. It would be good for you too, so you don't have to hear me complain about I can't lose weight.
Yeah, if you're eating out a lot, it's hard to lose weight because restaurant food has so many hidden calories. You think about cooking oils
Yeah.
and things like that they use. And I mean, I always tell people, like, one of my golden rules of nutrition is you don't eat dairy at a restaurant, period. You
Right.
just don't. Because that's going to be massive amounts of calories as well. Because they're not obviously choosing, skimmed versions of dairy. And I mean, I'm not a dairy eater anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised that you're going to see a difference.
Yeah. Well, that's what like we noticed this week. It was like I dropped a couple pounds too quickly because I'd gone back, eating at home, and I just tried to cut out like 200 calories from the day, but it was like an unconscious overcorrection without eating out as much. So then the last couple of days I've had to eat all my planned snacks and stuff and, kind of gain the weight back to where I should be instead of taking that like deep plunge where I couldn't. This is the danger if you're listening, if you're trying to cut weight, is as an athlete, if you cut it too quickly, then you have no energy. So like this is rest week for me, and Ryan set me up to do, not a tough set in the pool by any means, like tempo to threshold hundreds. And it should have been relatively easy, but it was like I had no energy, and like I couldn't even get my heart rate above like, was it 24 for 10? So that's like 144 beats a minute was like the highest I could get it going, because I was just pooped. I couldn't, and I could only do that for a couple. It was like I was sitting at like 130 beats a minute.
Yeah.
When normally when I'm fueled, like at the end of those, I can crank up to 160, 170. Sprints are at 180, 185, but that's where you got to be careful. And I don't know, through the different athletes you've had, and you've got more strength athletes now, don't you, than endurance people?
I teach some strength training classes.
Okay.
Everyone that I coach is still endurance oriented.
Gotcha.
But I at a local gym that I go to, I teach strength training classes.
Yeah. I just don't know, if you've got, how many of your athletes are focused on like, I need to be such and such weight, because I really have not focused on that for a long time. I just eat and it's whatever.
I mean, I definitely still have people who have weight loss goals.
Yeah. And
people who need to have weight loss goals.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think as a coach of endurance athletes, unless you're working with all elite level athletes, you're always going to be working with people on hearing their weight loss challenges. I mean, it's part of it, because a lot of people come to the sport as they view it as part of a way that they can lose weight, and that's fine and good. So yeah, it's something to deal with, commonly. But I see, the mentality, and you read about it all the time, the mentality of, well, I just did, X number of hours, 2 days, I can eat whatever. I mean, it's kind of cliche, but man, it is so true. People, that mindset is really prevalent with age group athletes.
Yeah.
And it kind of leads to, you don't ever see bodies change. I mean, you really, because after a while, as an endurance athlete, your body gets, plateaus and things like that.
Yeah.
And, what percent of potential weight loss is from nutrition? And it's like at least 75% of what you're doing nutritionally, and the mistakes that are being made, with poor diet choices.
Yeah. One of the big, I'll say revelations, but maybe that's the right word. For me was after college, I was working with a nutritionist at the gym. Now this guy was a bodybuilder, but he was really dialed in on like, what you need to be eating. I disagreed with him on several counts, as he wanted me to eat way too much protein. And by that, I mean, like his target for me was like 400 grams of protein a day.
Oh my goodness.
Just I was hitting like 250 and hitting a wall, and I was like, I just cannot do it anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of those things, it's important to listen to your body going like, no, like stop it.
Yeah.
Like, stop it. This is insane. But one of the things he did, I think was important, was he was like, okay, well, let's look at your workouts. Let's figure out how many calories you're burning. And then that gets averaged over the week. So it's not like, you're doing a huge workout on Sunday, so then you can gorge yourself Sunday evening. And then you have a light workout on Monday, so you barely eat anything. It's like it all averages out. Now, I adjusted that a little bit back when we were doing the 70.3 training and I was going out for those 5-hour rides and half-hour runs. Like, I'd eat a little more on Sunday just because you're out for 5 hours. I mean, that's a 3,000 calorie ride. You just need a little something. Otherwise, you're going to be toast for the next day, which was usually my long runs, go out for a half marathon the next day. But that's the kind of mentality I basically adopted, where it's like, that's why that 100 calorie a mile rule works out nice, because I can say, oh, we're running 40 miles this week. That's 4,000 calories. Bike and swim, an hour of swimming, we're hour 15, 700 calories. Indoor bike, I don't burn as much. So 400 or 500 calories an hour, split it up. That's where I'm at. Knock 200 calories a day off of that. And that's all, so that I'm not pooped. But, I had that overcorrection on accident. And that's the difficulty.
Are you saying that you try to match it up day to day and adjust, or are you staying balanced?
So I'm trying to basically eat roughly the same amount of calories every single day.
That's good. Yeah. The other way is not as effective.
Right. The like yo-yo method, where it's like,
it doesn't work, because you end up, because if you think about it, if you have a 2,000 calorie day burn, you're going to end up, over 4,000 plus whatever.
Right.
I mean, your body can't process that much food appropriately.
Right.
When you try to eat that, it is way better to just say, okay, this is kind of where I need to be. I need to kind of creature of habit myself to be, within this eating range.
Yeah.
And it's also, I kind of feel it's easier to balance out what you're eating as well. As then you can plan carbohydrate, protein, fat, fruit, vegetable, all that kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it's probably unfair of me, but my fiance takes care of pretty much the food planning, and so I know, like, basically I don't have to worry about dinner, and often I eat dinner for leftovers for lunch the next day. Breakfast basically doesn't change. I have a couple pretty standard snacks. So for me, it was just a matter of take out one of those 200 calorie snacks, and that's the only adjustment that has to be made. So, I always feel like it's a difficult subject. I do like to talk about it because it is kind of this undercurrent, I think, for a lot of people who have, like body image issues, or come to the sport from that aspect, where it's like, they think thinner is better. And then there's I think you and I talked about this, obviously off the air, but this idea that, well, if you're a pound lighter, then it's 2 pounds per second, or 2 seconds per mile faster for running. It's like, well, okay, but only if you're talking non-functional, like weight loss.
Yeah.
If you lose 2 pounds of muscle, you're not going to be
any faster, right?
Like, right. That's not helpful. So, but because of the problems with how those studies are set up, you can't really test like functional versus non-functional fitness. They basically like give them weights to carry around and then take the weights off and see how fast they can go. It's like, well, duh, it's completely dead weight.
And you also have, especially with the female athletes, the injury risk that can be associated with hyper weight loss. With the bone density decreases and things like that. I mean, there's definitely, a large part of it is, what the female body goes through. It's too much weight loss. They have to be careful.
Yeah.
They have to be careful.
And so along the lines of nutrition, I was talking about this the other day. When I was talking about, I did a video on I think like the two, I don't know if I called them superfoods, but like go-to foods basically.
No, okay. What were they?
For run, well, number one was spinach.
Oh yeah,
because you can add it to like anything. It doesn't change the flavor of your dishes very much.
And if you were to Google pretty much any micronutrient, or it's hard to Google looking. So like if you say, I need more magnesium, I want more magnesium, I want more calcium, I want more beta carotene. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's all you're going to find it there. And a lot of the good nuts too. It's like you see a lot of the good nuts every time. Anytime you try to research getting certain nutrients or amino acids. Yeah. What's your other one?
Well, the other one is where you come in, as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because it's got so much good stuff in it. It's so basic. Like, I think we take it for granted because it's like, oh, it's for kids. But it's like, no, like, and Todd has, I don't know if you watched Todd's episodes of the show. I can't remember what, he came back on episode 3 and then in like episode 29 or something like that. Todd, one of Todd's like go-to snacks or post-race meals is a PB&J. It tastes good. It's got carbs, fat, protein. Like it's got so much good stuff in it, and it's so accessible, which is why I mentioned you and where you come in, starting your nonprofit, Kc Pbj Project. So I kind of want to give you a little opportunity to talk more about what you're doing, why you're doing it.
I just had one a little while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one probably almost every day. Almost every day.
Well, that's basically what my breakfast is like protein waffles with peanut butter and jelly. It's pretty much what I eat every day.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, I love how you have that as one of your 2 superfoods. I think that's pretty.
Well, I think cool. Part of it is being accessible. Like, there, the whole like craze about acai, and it's like, okay, nobody's eating this, but let's start cramming it into everything.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. Like, I've had, well, it is. I've had the privilege, I say it as privilege of going to Hawaii, and they have a tradition or culture, and I think it's born of Hawaii, but I could be very wrong, of acai bowls. And we've had them back here in Kansas City. They are not like in Hawaii. They're still good, not the same. I like acai, but it's not as accessible. And the one thing I have figured out or concluded is like, you just got to make things dumb simple. And I don't mean that people are dumb. I mean, we only have so much brain power to devote to things. And if you've got to devote like brain power every single day to like, what am I going to eat? What's the perfect, it's like, you're going to drive yourself nuts, number one, and then you're not going to get anything done. So like having these easy go-to things where I know I'm going to get the macros I need in the case of the PB&J, and then a ton of micronutrients with the spinach. That's why they too, because they're accessible and they're no-brainers.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I like that a lot. I like the simplicity. It's hard to say that to triathletes sometimes because triathletes like to make things more challenging than they should be.
Right.
I've always noticed that highly successful athletes oftentimes tend to be ones that just kind of go with the flow and don't obsess over every little detail.
Right.
And it kind of goes back to what you were just saying, and keeping that simple, because you're right. Macronutrient standpoint, it's there. And a PBJ, you can, first of all, you can get a lot of variation within that simplicity, but it's kind of like pizza, to where you can have super unhealthy pizza. You could make some choices within a PBJ that maybe aren't real good. but it's very easy and very accessible to make good choices.
Yeah.
With the products you're choosing as well.
So is that the idea behind focusing on PB&J for the startup? And what if, for people that are listening, they probably have no idea what we're talking about. So can you give a brief overview on what your nonprofit is doing, and then come back to why you're doing it?
Yeah, so the nonprofit is called the Kc Pbj Project, and my family started this about a year ago, and we started it, kind of in the midst of COVID, when they were talking about, they were showing on TV like the pictures at the food pantries and stuff with the cars lined up for miles and miles and stuff. And I've done some food pantry volunteer work myself, and it kind of hit home with me and brought back memories of serving those people, working with those people, and the challenges that they have, the challenges of the food pantry system, which we were witnessing right there on TV with, the lines of cars and stuff. So what our nonprofit does is families can apply for assistance through us here in the Kansas City area, and they will receive a once a month delivery of enough bread, peanut butter, and jelly, to supplement the food in their household, for a month. So right now we got about 75 families that we're serving, or households, as I like to call them, because some people are just one person households. We got about 75, and we use a network of volunteers to service most of those. And then we have a small amount that we service from in-house, that we service through like product donations and cash donations as well. So it's a very, again, we're using this word a lot today, it's a very simple concept, because our volunteers just simply, call up their families once a month and make that delivery to them. And, we've had, the feedback has just been tremendous from both the volunteers and the families, what they're getting out of it. So it's been a great thing. And, I would love to be able to, I don't know if I want to say I'd want to do it, as my full-time job, because I'm not sure financially quite how that would work, or how we could make that work. But we've streamlined the operations a lot since we started, and it's basically set up now to where we can scale it. We got 75, we could do 750. As long as we continue to network for volunteers and stuff. So it's been great.
Well, I know, you and I talked about it again off the podcast, not recording. So you were kind of hitting a wall there for a little while as you were still personally hand delivering and stuff. And I think maybe this is an opportunity for you to speak personally, but I think sometimes it's hard. There's a lot of, I'll say, hate for like CEOs or people at the top of organizations right now. And sometimes for good reason. But I think it's hard sometimes for people to relate to the demands of being the head of an organization that's in charge of a large mass of people, be it a Fortune 100 company or a nonprofit. So can you talk about a little bit like the challenges you're running into and the reasons for kind of streamlining operations?
Well, we streamlined because I was starting to, so when we first started out, the vision was we'll collect money and donations, and then we'll ship or deliver all these products to all these people. Okay. So, and then I remember the first time we got requests, 4 requests came in one day. So I went down to the basement where we had pre-purchased some product, from the money from donations, and I packaged them up and I put shipping labels on them and I shipped them out. And I looked at my watch and I'm like, we've got the capacity to serve about 8 households at this rate that we're going right now. So I was like, okay, so this is fine right now, but this is going to have to evolve. It's going to have to change. It's going to have to evolve. So one day I just came up, so many people were telling me they love the concept and everything. It was great. And one day I just came up with the concept that we need to just get people to adopt these families and deliver on their own and donate, buy the goods on their own, because people are wanting to donate and help. And as my experience as a volunteer is that when you're close to the benefactor and you have that personal touch with them, you get a lot more out of your experience rather than if you just send money somewhere, or with a lot of volunteer opportunities where, you don't have that. If you're packing backpacks of food at a school for the kids, you don't have that personal touch really with who you're working for or who you're donating to. And so with our concept, I thought we could do a lot of things here. We can service more households and we can give people an awesome volunteer opportunity. And I've had a lot of people come to me and say they have, they've developed personal relationships with the households and how great it is and how they compare it to other volunteer things they've done. I had a guy like last week tell me he tried to volunteer somewhere and they're having him fill out all this paperwork and he's gonna have to do all this training. And I was like, yeah, we keep it simple and you get a lot out of it because you have that personal relationship with our benefactors. So we came up with that concept, and that's really kind of where it started. I was like, okay, now this is where we can scale up now. Mm-hmm. This is where we can basically help an unlimited number of people by simply developing a network of volunteers to match to the families as we get requests. I would say our biggest challenge right now is probably two things. One is just getting volunteers is easy, but we need more people. We know there's more families out there, more households that could use the assistance, so we need to reach more households. And we've got some plans to do that here this spring for sure to get numbers up. The other is that just because of my connections and such, and because we are out of Olathe, we don't tend to get a lot of volunteers in other parts of the metropolitan area. Mm-hmm. So if I get a request today from, let's just say, Raytown, from a family in Raytown, I don't have a volunteer in the Raytown area right now to service them. I'd have to go out in social media and try to find one, which is a challenge. But if I got, if I had a family request in the Olathe, Overland Park type area, I would have them connected in the same day, because we have a wait list of volunteers right now in those areas. So developing our volunteers in other parts of our metropolitan area is kind of the second challenge as well. So, but we're going to start working on both those aspects now that we've kind of grown it to where we got our systems down and everything. So mm-hmm. I'm really comfortable right now working to grow, because I'm not doing deliveries anymore. We right. have delivery volunteers who service the ones that we still service from in-house inventory. So those are the challenges.
Yeah, I'll have to.
But they're good challenges. They're growing pain type challenges.
Right. I'll have to keep thinking about that, because I know that figuring out how to do scale is always a challenge for different industries, especially when you're talking about scaling with people. But it's like to me, it seems like the challenge is getting past your own personal network. Yes. Like, how do you reach people? How do you reach people that you've never spoken to and have them want to get involved? Right. And also locally. So, obviously we've talked about off air, we've talked about like paid ad options and stuff, but there's got to be some smarter way that I just am not familiar with it.
Yeah, we're going to do some paid ad stuff on both sides of it. We're fortunate enough through our donors that, we can afford to do that. Yeah. So we're going to do that. We're going to start working on that as well. Yeah. Because I'm excited now, because like I said, our goal was, we were like, well, if we can get to 40, that would be awesome. And here we are at almost double that. Yeah. And now I'm like, we're in a position now to where, again, we can, the sky's the limit. Pretty much on helping people, which is fabulous,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Coach. I think you got to go get your kids here momentarily. So as we're winding down, I'll ask you this year's question. You're the only person to get to answer all three of my questions so far. So big one. Although you've probably, in my workout logs, you've probably answered this a number of times over the years. My question this year is, how do you stay motivated after failing to reach a goal?
Me personally?
Yeah.
One of the unique things about me, I've always felt when I compare myself to other athletes is I've just never had a problem with motivation. I mean, it's like, okay, I didn't reach it. I guess for me, it's just, I just view it as giving up or giving in is just really not ever been on the table for me. I either go after it again or I move on to the next thing that was planned. Motivation has just never really been a problem for me.
I asked that question to Olympic rower Akil Abdullah a while ago in recording, and he had touched on it earlier in our conversation, but talking about when you fail at something, rather than being so critical, as he's gotten older, he's gotten to this place where he approaches it out of a place of curiosity. Mm-hmm. Because the follow-up to what you said is basically well, how do you determine whether you should try again or move on? And I don't know what your thought is, but I kind of think it's when you come at it from a place of curiosity, then you can determine whether the point of failure is inside or outside your control, and whether that means it's worth attempting again. He made the mention of sometimes when you get beat in a race, that guy's just better than you. It just is. There's nothing you can do about it, and it is what it is. But if you had a flat tire because you've been running on the same tires for 1,000 miles and you never changed it, well, that's inside your control. Maybe put a new tire on. There's a clear distinction between some of those things.
Yeah. I played a lot of competitive basketball growing up, and sometimes here we are in March Madness, and that's something you somehow have to learn how to say is that other guy was just flat better. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's hard to be the best in the world. It's really hard to do. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen very often. So it's okay to say that. I don't want to bring it up. I don't want to talk about it, but I know what my biggest failure was as an endurance athlete. I know exactly what it was. And I even with that, after recovering from that, my motivation didn't, I didn't take up a new hobby, type thing. I was just going to get back at it, maybe something a little bit different, but I've just never, I've just always been able to maintain my enthusiasm.
I think you're getting text messages.
Wait, say that again, you cut out on me.
So I think you're getting text messages. I think your phone's vibrating. It's coming across.
It's my Ring doorbell.
Okay. So somebody's at the door. I just knew it was vibrating, but that's okay. We're here at the end.
No, let's do the other questions.
What?
The other two questions.
The other two questions?
I thought you said there was three.
No. You answered the other two on your previous airings.
Okay.
Your food and the purpose of sport. As I said, you're the only one that's gotten to answer all three for all three seasons.
What were they? Remind me again.
The first year was if you only got to choose one recovery food for the rest of your life, what do you choose?
What did I choose?
I'd have to go back and look. Hopefully Pbj. And then the other one is what's up? Go ahead.
My go-to lately has just been, I simplified it. That's coming up a lot today.
Yeah.
1 scoop of isolate whey protein powder.
Yeah.
And a bunch of fruit mixed with almond milk.
Yeah.
That's it.
There you go.
And then what was the other one?
The purpose of sport.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a deep one.
Yeah. I've got a whole, if you're listening and you're interested, on the YouTube channel, again, youtube.com/Sulprey. There is a compilation video from season 2 of everybody answering that, what's the purpose of sport? And I found the answers varied so much from the succinct to the long-winded, but always somehow really well thought out. So even if you haven't listened to every single episode from the second season, it's only available on the YouTube channel. It's worth checking out to hear why we are all doing this, because not everybody comes from the same place. So anyway, I will let you get on with your day. Go pick up your kids so they're not like, where's my dad? He left me. And
all right, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out.
All right, we'll see you at 200.